Hello. Well, we're going to continue on with developing our application in using Lazarus and free Pascal. So we will come down here and click on Lazarus and bring up our application. And we left off, we were working on the log on window, this window. And we had a couple of issues, and I've done a little research, and we can make some changes to our code here to correct a few problems. Let's just run it. You can run it by clicking on the function 9 key, or you can just pull down the run menu and click on run. Okay, here's our window. And a problem that we had was it wouldn't refocus on the user ID entry field if we had a bad logon. So let's give it a bad logon. I'll type in ABC tab ABC. This is a bad logon. And if I tab out of the password field, it's going to be just as though I clicked on the logon button. And this works. It puts out ABC logon failed in the panel at the bottom of the window like it's supposed to. The problem is, you'll notice that our logon button is what has focus. It didn't refocus on this user ID entry, text entry box. That's the issue we were having. And in order to get it to move focus from logon button back up here, I had to hit the tab key. I just did that, and now it's focused correctly. I figured out why it's doing that, and we're going to correct that. Okay. The other thing that I've discovered in my readings is, you recall that we have these compiler directives up near the top of the unit, and they identify what operating system we're compiling for, and they set the FileSep identifier to the correct character. If it's Linux or Unix, it would set it to the the forward slash. And if it's MS Windows, it sets the file separator identifier value to the backslash. I have discovered that this code is unnecessary. So that's one of the first corrections we'll make. It's very simple. First of all, we can get rid of all of this code. So I'll highlight it and press delete, and now it's gone. And right now we don't need the macro on either. That was a macro. We're not using it anymore. We can get rid of that as well. Okay, now we have this FileSep thing we're using all over in our code, right? I go up here to, I think is it search? Yeah, and it's find. We click find, and we want to find all occurrences of FileSep. Okay, and we hit find, and you'll notice right here highlighted, it's a dark blue background with white lettering on it. There's an occurrence of FileSep. We don't need that. It turns out that there is an identifier that the value is set depending on the operating system that the code is compiled for. And that identifier is, I think it's called directory separator. So wherever we have FileSep, we can make that directory separator, and it will work the same way. So we will do a search, and we want to do a find and replace. So you come to replace here, click that, and it already has FileSep entered for us. And now we want to replace it with something. So we would just type in directory separator and say replace all. And now you can see that where FileSep was, it now says directory separator. And it has that wherever it was used. It was also used here. Okay? Alright, so we have resolved that. Now we need to resolve the issue of it not focusing on the user ID field after an invalid user ID and password entry. So we need to focus on our form. Go back to our form, and we currently have this focused. We need to go to the Events tab over here in the Object Inspector, and oh, it's password. That's what we want to be on. I'm sorry. We want to be focused on the password, because it's when we exit this box that it pretends that the logon button has been clicked. And if you look here in Events for the password, for the on exit event here, it is set to button log on click. We want to change that. Okay. We want that to be none. Okay. So that will take care of that problem. And so now from now on we do have to click the logon button. Okay, it changes that the way it operates. So we can go back to our tab here and let's save what we've got. That's Control S. Yes, Control S saved it. And are there any other changes? I don't think so. We can now test this to make sure if our changes have in fact fixed our issues. And let's set a we're going to set a breakpoint right here, and that will let us take a look at full path and make sure that it's that the directory separator is correct for this operating system. And I have misspelled separator. Okay, I got to fix that. Directory separator. It's used in a couple places. It's also used here. Okay, I think I fixed them all. Control S to save it. Okay, let's run it and see what happens. Just press F9 to run our code. Alright, so I will enter a bad user ID and a bad password. If I hit tab now, it moved focus to log on, but it didn't do anything. I have to click log on. Okay. And if we look, we're trapped. We stopped right here at our breakpoint. And if I look at full path, put my glasses on so I can read it. Yes. Right after it says YouTube code, the correct slash has been put in as a separator to users.dat, between users.dat and the directory path. Okay, so that's good. We fixed that. Now I can turn off that breakpoint and press F9 for it to continue execution. And you'll notice now that when it fails, it outputs the message and it now refocuses on the user ID field, just as we had originally intended. So we have fixed, we've changed one thing and eliminated the need for those compile time directives, and we fixed the focusing on the user ID after a failed password entry. Okay, so those two issues are out of the way. Now, when the when the logon window is first created, we execute some code. That's in this logon code. If I go all the way to the bottom of the source code, we have this this form create event for the logon form. And what it does is it takes the current directory separator, and it looks for this file in the current directory. And that file doesn't currently exist. So since it doesn't exist, it skips all this code and then just returns back, and then it proceeds on with the display of the logon screen and accepting the user ID and password. If this file exists, then it opens the file and it reads it, and the contents of it are now used as the application file path. Well, we haven't really tested that to see if that works. So we can create a file in the development path that will mimic that this setup file had been created, okay? And then we can test this code to make sure that it works, all right? So I think that will be a good step, and show you how we're going to do that. So whatever operating system you're in, you probably have some kind of a source code editor. I have a text editor on Linux. Windows has a notepad application that lets you create text files. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use my text editor, and I am going to enter my full path that I have for that we're developing in, and that currently that is in Linux, it's in the home directory, and then my user ID, and then it's in Lazarus directory, and then it is YouTube _code. So that is the path to our development directory. Now I want to save that as, and so now I have to locate the Lazarus directory, and then we need to find YouTube code, and now we're going to store it in here as MyApplicationFilePath.dat. Okay, so now the editor shows that it's stored in that path as that file name. So that's all I need to do. Close that. We can go in here, and we can go into that directory. So I want to change directory to Lazarus, and YouTube underscore it's YouTube underscore code, I believe, isn't it? Yes. And if I do a directory of that, we should find, yes, right here is the file that we just created, right? And if I print out the contents of it, there it is. So the contents is home, Larry Cullen, Lazarus, YouTube code. That's the path we want for our files to be in. So that's all set. So now if we execute this code, what's going to happen is it's going to create a path file name that does exist, okay, and it will then create the handle to it, open it. It will make sure it will, if it's not an end of file condition, in other words, if it's not an empty file, it will then read the line, and that line will get trimmed on front and back, and it's now set. And app file path is global to this unit, so it'll be able to see it. So it'll then close the file and return, and the next thing will happen is the form will be made visible, and we will start doing our entry. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that app file path gets set. We want to make sure that all this code executes, right? And then we want to go back to the logon click, right? And so we're going to have we'll set a trap here, a breakpoint, and we'll set a breakpoint also down here in this code. I'll set it right here, and then we can monitor what happens as this application executes. So let's run it. And now we'll look in the code here, and you can see the breakpoint has triggered. The file name is, and here's our complete file name, right? Now, the next thing that's going to happen is going to test to see if the file exists. If it doesn't, it would just return. Otherwise, it's going to execute all these statements in here, right? So let's press F8. Ah, it does exist. Okay, so it's going to assign the file name to MyAppFilePath file. It's going to open it. That's what reset does. If it's not at end of file, okay, I'll press F8. We'll see if it's not at end of file. It's not. Now it's going to read the line from MyAppFilePath, that file, into the string variable appFilePath. That's this right here. Okay, it's going to do that. Right? Let's see what's in there. We'll just hover over it, and there is our appFilePath that we set in MyApplicationFilePath.dat, right, in our current directory. So that's correct. We can press F8, it will trim the front and the back. It will then close MyAppFilePath, and we move on to the next piece of code. And I'll hit F9. And now it displays our screen, and now we enter our code. So we would enter, well, I'll enter backdoor, BACKDOOR. That would normally work. We click log on. Our trap has executed, our breakpoint right here. It's saying, is appFilePath empty? Well, it no longer is. It has a path. So since it has a path, what's going to happen? It's not blank. So we have this begin right here and this end. So in other words, none of this code from this begin down to that end will execute. Therefore, we don't get validated. We're not going to get validated. So let's hit F8. You'll see we went right to the end of the code that we have so far. We're not going to get validated, are we? So I'll hit F9 and click log on, and we didn't get validated. Let's see. I can bring up let's see if we're still running. We're not. Oh, I guess maybe we are. Yeah, we're still running. We didn't get validated because none of that backdoor code executed. It's saying, oh, since I have a valid path now, I have to do something else. And in a way, that's not correct. Not having a path is one thing that would be a problem, but you also would need to then see if there is a user's .dat file, okay? So we have to add another condition to this if statement, okay? So we need to add an or here. So let's shut that breakpoint off right now. So we also need an or. Or we're going to have another condition, right? Or if not file exists and it's going to, let's put this on a separate line. It's going to be a long line here, so let's just bring it down here, and we're going to say so if it's equal to blank or, so the way this will work in an if statement, if the first condition is met, the rest of the or does not happen. So it would say if AppFilePath is equal to blank, boom, right away. It would stop right there. Next one is if it's not blank, then it would say if exists, and you would say AppFilePath plus, and let's just steal this down here, directory separator, users .dat. This whole thing, we need it. Control, we'll copy it, Control C, we'll come back up here and insert it, Control V, there we go. So if it doesn't, so now we're saying, okay, that doesn't exist. Well, I guess we can, and that really, okay. So we don't need that. That comment is kind of superfluous. So in other words, either the application file path has not been established, it's blank, or it has been established but the file users.dat doesn't exist. Okay, that works. All right. That fixes that issue, I believe. Okay. Yeah, we'll do it that way. We'll see how this works. Control S, save that. And then we will bring up our, come on. Okay. Yeah, we just go down here and click this a few times. Is it running? No, it's not running. So, unit my application, that changed. That changed? I didn't change anything there. Did I? No. Guess I'll Control S that. I don't know why that's set. Don't need this. All right. So let's run it again, and we'll stop here. We will stop here. No, we won't stop there. We will stop here, and we will see if that works. So we'll click run, we'll run it. All right. We got code, we got a breakpoint triggering here still. We didn't remove that breakpoint. I did, I think. Hit F9 again. Okay, our screen came up. We're going to put in vac door. Click log on. Okay, our code executed. We triggered here. We're stopped on this statement. This is our OR statement. We'll press F8. So now it's moving to the other half. So FilePath does exist. It's not empty. If we hover over it, we can see it's not empty. Okay. The next test is if this file doesn't exist. It doesn't. So let's hit F8. Okay. It did the correct thing. You know, this didn't exist. So now it's going to create the full path name. Right? And actually, it doesn't need to do this anymore. Because it already knows this doesn't exist. So basically, we can get rid of this code of setting the full path and testing it again. We're just doing the same thing over again. So let's go back and fix that. Okay, I think that's the right thing to do. Let's stop execution. We go to the run button. We come down to stop. You could hit Control F2. I didn't do that. Okay, so we don't really need this variable anymore. All right, get rid of that. Do we need it? I don't think we do. Let's get rid of it. All right, and then let's come down here, and we do not need to do this, right? And this if statement, this if begin thing here, so all the code in here. So we can get rid of this if statement, get rid of that breakpoint. That isn't going to exist anymore. So let's delete that line. Okay. And let's take all of these lines here and I think I can do a shift back tab. Yeah. Unindent all that. And back door. Okay, that means we can get rid of all of this. That's right. Okay, so this end matches this begin, and this end matches this begin over here. So our blocks are properly set. Yes. Okay. So I believe this will work. There's only one way to find out. Let's hit Control S and run it, F9. And we can take, I think we can take this breakpoint out. No, let's leave it in. We'll let it trap there. Okay, let's go give it a shot here. F9. Okay, we'll put in backdoor. Click logon. Code executes. Click the tab button. We're trapped where the breakpoint has triggered. App file path has been set. We can now control F8 will let us step through it. So app file path is not blank, so it goes to the next conditional part of the statement. Not exists. It does not. It checks to see if user ID text is back. It is. It checks to see if I typed in the password text door. I did. So it now sets the user ID, the username, and the caption for the panel. It clears user ID text field, the password text field. It sets visible to false. So now the logon window's gone away, and then I'm going to hit F9. It will then display our application window and continue right there. Boom. And that's exactly what happened. It logged us on, and we have our files. We click exit, and we're back to our logon window. And interestingly enough, our user ID is not focused. So what does that tell us? We've got to change our code to focus on user ID when we return. Let's see if that works. So I'll close this. That terminates the application. Let's bring up our toolbar. And so we're back to logon. And we can get rid of this breakpoint. Okay. So after the application window is closed, we return here. We set visibility of the logon window back to true. And now we have to do user ID set focus again. Which is right here. So we will steal this line. Steal it, but you know what I mean. We're going to take this line and Control C, and then come up here, Control V. Let's see if that fixes that issue. We'll save our Control S to save our changes. Press F9 to run the code. And now we will put in backdoor. That. Click logon. Make it to our window. Exit. And yes, now when we return to our logon window, user ID is focused. Okay. I'm going to stop here. This is a short one. Again, I'm trying to keep these short. We've got this we have everything working the way we want right now. So the next step is going to be adding the code to do setup. In other words, when we get to our main window and we click files, we're going to add a setup ability, and that maybe we'll call it set path. We'll put set path in here. And that will bring up a window which lets us search for a directory where we want to put our, where we want to store the path to where all of our application data is going to be. Okay, I think that's the next thing. Well, until then, I want to say thank you for watching, and if you like the content, give me a like, and if you want to see more, press the subscribe button, and you'll get my next release. Take care. Have a good day.